What happens when a country music legend walks into what should be a light-hearted interview, only to find himself in the middle of a conversation that spirals completely out of control? When pleasantries turn into pointed jabs, and a simple question becomes the spark that ignites an unforgettable television moment. The cameras were rolling, the audience was watching, and nobody, not even the producers, could have predicted what was about to unfold on live television. Before we dive into what really went down, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below to let us know what you think about celebrity interviews that go off the rails. Blake Shelton settled into the couch on The View's iconic set, his signature grin plastered across his face as the audience applause died down. He'd done this routine countless times before, promoting new music, cracking jokes, playing the charming country boy that America had fallen in love with over the years. The panel sat across from him, ready with their note cards and rehearsed questions. Everything seemed standard, normal. Just another day of morning television. Whoopi Goldberg started things off with an easy question about his latest album, and Blake leaned back comfortably, talking about the inspiration behind his new songs, the recording process, and how he'd been spending time on his Oklahoma ranch. The conversation flowed smoothly, exactly as these interviews are supposed to go. Sunny host chimed in with a question about touring, and Blake responded with an anecdote that had the audience laughing. Then Joy Behar leaned forward, and there was something in her expression that shifted the energy in the room. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but Blake caught it. The slight narrowing of her eyes, the way she repositioned herself in her chair. She had something on her mind, something that wasn't on the prompter. "So, Blake," Joy began, her voice carrying that particular tone that regular viewers of the show would recognize immediately. "I've been thinking about country music lately, and I have to ask you something that's been bothering me." Blake nodded politely, still smiling, though his posture straightened just slightly. "Sure, go ahead. Don't you think country music has become a bit, well, repetitive?" Joy asked. "I mean, how many songs can we really have about trucks, beer, and dirt roads before it all starts sounding the same?" The audience let out a collective murmur, sensing the shift. Blake's smile tightened, but he maintained his composure. "Well, Joy, I think that's a pretty narrow view of an entire genre," Blake replied, his tone still calm but now carrying a slight edge. "Country music tells stories about real people and real lives. If those stories happen to include trucks and beer, it's because that resonates with millions of people across this country." Joy waved her hand dismissively. "But come on, where's the artistry? Where's the poetry? You can't compare what you do to real musicians, real songwriters who actually have something meaningful to say." The other hosts exchanged uncomfortable glances. Whoopi shifted in her seat, clearly sensing where this was heading. Blake's jaw clenched for just a moment before he responded. "Real musicians?" he repeated, his voice still controlled, but carrying an edge now. "Joy, I've been making music for over 2 decades. I've written songs that have connected with people during the best and worst moments of their lives. I've had fans tell me my music got them through divorces, helped them celebrate weddings, gave them comfort when they lost loved ones. So, yeah, I'd say that's pretty real." "Oh, please," Joy shot back, leaning even further forward. "You're basically just packaging the same product over and over again and selling it to people who don't know any better. It's not art, it's commerce. You're a brand, not an artist." The studio went silent. Even the producers behind the cameras seemed frozen, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let this play out. Blake's smile had completely vanished, replaced by something harder, more focused. "A brand," he said slowly, letting the word hang in the air. "That's interesting, coming from someone who's built an entire career out of saying controversial things for ratings. Tell me, Joy, when was the last time you created something that actually mattered to people? When was the last time you did anything besides sit behind this desk and tear down people who are actually out there making things, creating things, connecting with audiences in ways you never could. Joy's face flushed red. "Excuse me? I've been in this industry longer than you've been alive, kid," Joy says, her voice cold with condescension. "I've interviewed presidents, world leaders, actual important people who shape policy and change lives. You sing songs about pickup trucks." "Yeah, and those songs have meaning to the people who listen to them," Blake fires back, his Oklahoma accent thickening as his emotions rise. "You sit here in your bubble in New York City and look down on an entire culture of people because they don't fit into your narrow definition of what matters. You know what I think? I think you're scared of what country music represents. You're scared of the people who listen to it, the values they hold, the lives they live outside of your coastal elite circles." Whoopi finally intervenes, raising her hands. Okay, let's take a breath here." Blake cuts her off, his eyes still locked on Joy. "Let her say what she really means. Because I've been doing this long enough to know when someone's got a real problem with not just my music, but with the people who love it. This isn't about whether my songs are repetitive or not. This is about you thinking you're better than the millions of Americans who find value in what I do." Joy stands her ground, but her voice takes on a defensive edge. "I'm not saying I'm better than anyone. I'm saying there are levels to art, and what you do is bottom-tier entertainment. It's background noise at a bar. It's not Springsteen. It's not Dylan. It's certainly not anything that will be remembered 50 years from now. You know what will be remembered?" Blake asks, leaning forward now, the space between them charged with tension. "The way you just insulted the intelligence and taste of half this country on live television. The way you revealed exactly what you think about people who don't share your worldview. This isn't about music anymore, Joy. And I think you know it." The audience sits in stunned silence, some shifting uncomfortably, others pulling out their phones to capture the moment that's about to break the internet. The other hosts glance between Joy and Blake like spectators at a tennis match, unsure how to regain control. "I think we need to move on," Ana Navarro finally says, her voice tight with discomfort. "Blake, let's talk about your upcoming tour dates." But Blake isn't done. "No, I want to hear Joy finish her thought. She started this conversation, and I think America deserves to hear exactly what she thinks about the people who live between the coasts, who work with their hands, who find joy in simple things like a cold beer and a good song. Go ahead, Joy. Tell us what you really think." Joy opens her mouth, then closes it, clearly weighing her next words carefully. The producers frantically signal for a commercial break, but no one is taking the cue. This moment has taken on a life of its own, and cutting away now would only make things worse. Whoopi tries once more to redirect the conversation, but Blake holds up his hand, never taking his eyes off Joy. "You want to know what I really think?" Joy finally says, her voice sharp and cutting. "I think country music has become a safe space for people who refuse to evolve, who cling to outdated ideas and wrap themselves in flags and patriotism to avoid having real conversations about real issues. It's comfort food for people who don't want to think too hard about the world around them." The audience gasped audibly. Blake sat back in his chair, nodding slowly, a bitter smile crossing his face. "There it is," he said. "That's what I was waiting for. You just couldn't help yourself, could you?" "I'm being honest," Joy defended. "Someone needs to say it. Country music celebrates a version of America that doesn't exist anymore. That maybe never existed. It's nostalgia porn for people who want to pretend everything was better in some imaginary past." Blake laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Nostalgia porn? That's rich. You know what your problem is, Joy? You think because people find comfort in tradition, in their roots, in the way they were raised, that makes them stupid. That makes them less than. You've spent so much time in your echo chamber that you've forgotten there's a whole country out there that doesn't think like you, doesn't live like you, and doesn't need your approval to be valid. Sonny tried to jump in. I think we're getting away from the music itself here. Blake, your fans clearly connect with what you create, and that's what matters. No, let's stay right here, Blake said, his attention still fixed on Joy. Because this is the conversation she wanted to have. This is what she does every single day on this show. She picks a target, usually someone who represents values she disagrees with, and she tears them down under the guise of having an honest conversation. But it's not honest, is it, Joy? It's just mean. Mean? Joy scoffed. I'm being truthful. If you can't handle criticism, maybe you shouldn't be in the public eye. Maybe you should stick to playing your little songs for your little audience and stop pretending you're some kind of cultural force. Blake's face darkened. Little audience? You mean the millions of people who show up to concerts, who stream the music, who make country one of the most popular genres in America? Those little people? Or are we talking about the little towns they live in? The little lives they lead that you find so beneath you? Don't put words in my mouth, Joy snapped. I never said anything about the people themselves. You didn't have to, Blake countered. It's in every word you say, every dismissive gesture. Every time you talk about country music like it's something that crawled out from under a rock. You're not criticizing the music, Joy. You're criticizing the culture, the people, the entire way of life that created it. And yeah, that makes me angry. That should make anyone angry. Whoopi held up both hands, her voice firm. All right, we need to bring this down a notch. We're all adults here. We can disagree without it getting personal. But it is personal, Blake said, turning to Whoopi. That's the whole point. When Joy says country music doesn't matter, when she says it's not real art, she's saying the people who create it and love it don't matter. She's saying their experiences, their stories, their emotions aren't worthy of respect. How is that not personal? Joy crossed her arms. I'm saying there are different levels of artistic merit, and not all music is created equal. That's not a controversial statement. That's just a fact. Some music challenges you, makes you think, pushes boundaries. Country music does none of those things. You're wrong, Blake said flatly. Country music has always pushed boundaries. It's talked about poverty, addiction, heartbreak, loss, all the things that real people deal with every single day. Because it doesn't come wrapped in the package you approve of, because it doesn't come from the cities or the coasts, you dismiss it. You dismiss all of it, Blake said, voice tightening with frustration. Anna jumped in, trying to find middle ground. Look, both of you have valid points. Art is subjective. What moves one person might not move another, and that's okay. Can we agree on that? No, Blake said firmly. We can't, because this isn't about subjective taste. This is about respect. I would never go on television and tell Joy that her work doesn't matter, that the things she cares about are meaningless, or that the people who watch this show are somehow less intelligent or less cultured than anyone else. I wouldn't do that because it's disrespectful, and it's wrong. But she feels perfectly comfortable doing it to me, to country music, to everyone who loves it. Joy leaned back in her chair, a smug expression on her face. If you're this defensive about your music, maybe there's some truth to what I'm saying. Maybe deep down you know it's not as important as you want it to be. Blake's hands gripped the armrests of his chair, his voice steady but rising with emotion. You know what I know? I know that I've met people who told me my songs saved their lives. I've had veterans tell me that my music helped them readjust to civilian life. I've had parents tell me they played my songs at their children's funerals. I've had couples tell me they had their first dance to one of my songs. That's what I know. What do you know, Joy? What have you done that's made that kind of impact on anyone? The studio went completely silent again. Even the camera operators seemed frozen, unsure of what to do next. Joy's face had gone from smug to something harder to read. A mixture of anger and something else. Maybe embarrassment. I've used my platform to speak truth to power, she said, her voice lower now. I've held politicians accountable. I've fought for causes I believe in. I've given voice to people who don't have one. From behind a desk in a television studio, Blake shot back. In front of cameras, in front of audiences who already agree with you. That's not courage, Joy. That's preaching to the choir. You want to know what courage is? It's standing on a stage in front of thousands of people, being vulnerable enough to share your heart through music. It's writing songs about your failures, your pain, your mistakes, and letting the world judge you for it. It's creating something from nothing and putting it out there for people to either love or hate. Sonny tried once more to intervene. Blake makes a good point about vulnerability in art. Joy, do you see any value in the emotional honesty that country music often displays? Joy waved her hand dismissively. Emotional honesty, please. It's formulaic. Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy drinks beer about it. Or it's rah-rah America, support the troops, love your mama. It's not profound. It's predictable. And talk shows where hosts attack their guests? What, groundbreaking television? Blake asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. You want to talk about formulaic? This is the same thing you do every day. You pick someone, you tear them down, everyone applauds because you said what they were thinking, and then you move on to the next target. At least my formula brings people joy instead of just making them angry. Joy stood up suddenly, and for a moment, it looked like she might walk off the set. The other hosts tensed, clearly unsure of what was about to happen. But Joy didn't leave. Instead, she pointed at Blake, her fingers shaking slightly. You don't get to come on my show and lecture me about what I do or how I do it. This is my house, and if you don't like the questions, there's the door. Blake stood up too, matching her energy. Your house? This is network television, Joy. It belongs to everyone watching. And yeah, maybe I should leave because clearly having an actual conversation with someone who disagrees with you is too much for you to handle. You can dish it out, but you can't take it, can you? Joy's voice dripped with sarcasm. Whoopi stood up, positioning herself between them. Okay, that's enough. Both of you sit down. We're going to commercial. We're going to take a breath. And when we come back, we're going to have a civil conversation. Or we're going to end this interview. Your choice. But Blake was already unclipping his microphone. No need for a choice. I'm done here. I came on this show to talk about music, to promote my album, to have a good time. But instead, I got ambushed by someone who clearly had an agenda from the start. So yeah, I'm leaving. Running away? Joy taunted, her composure cracking. Can't handle a little criticism? Blake turned to face her one last time, his eyes burning with intensity. This wasn't criticism, Joy. This was an attack. And you know what the sad part is? You probably think you won something here today. You probably think you put me in my place, proved your point, showed your audience how smart and superior you are. But all you did was prove exactly what I said. You proved that you have no respect for people who don't fit into your worldview, and you're willing to use your platform to belittle them on national television. The other hosts were frantically trying to restore order, but the damage was already done. The audience sat in stunned silence, some with their mouths hanging open, others filming everything on their phones. The producers had finally cut to commercial, but not before millions of viewers had witnessed one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. When the red recording lights finally dimmed, signaling they were off air, the tension in the studio somehow felt even worse. Without the cameras rolling, the facade of professionalism dropped completely. Joy stood with her arms crossed, her face flushed with anger and adrenaline. Blake had moved toward the edge of the stage, but Whoopi had caught his arm. "Blake, please, just wait a second," Whoopi said, her voice urgent but controlled. "Don't leave like this. We've got 4 more minutes when we come back from commercial. Let's finish this the right way." Blake shook his head, pulling his arm gently from her grasp. "The right way, Whoopi? There is no right way to finish this. Joy made it clear what she thinks about me, about country music, about everyone who listens to it. What else is there to say?" Joy finally spoke up, her voice still sharp. "Oh, so now you're the victim. You came on this show knowing what kind of conversations we have here. If you couldn't handle it, you shouldn't have agreed to come. Handle it? Blake turned back toward her, his voice rising again. I can handle a tough conversation, Joy. I can handle disagreement. I can even handle criticism. What I can't handle is disrespect. What I can't handle is you using your platform to talk down to millions of people who you've never met, who you don't understand, who you don't even try to understand. Sunny stepped forward, hands raised in a calming gesture. Maybe we're all just a little heated right now. Maybe we all said things we didn't mean, or said them more harshly than we intended. Blake, if you stay for the last segment, we can try to end on a better note. Find some common ground. Blake laughed bitterly. Common ground? You think there's common ground here? Sunny, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but let's be honest about what happened today. Joy didn't ask me those questions because she was curious about country music, or my perspective. She asked them because she wanted to provoke exactly this reaction. She wanted a moment and she got one. Congratulations, Joy. You'll be trending on social media by the time I get to my car. Don't flatter yourself, Joy shot back. This isn't about creating a moment. This is about having real conversations that other people are too afraid to have. Someone needs to call out the mediocrity that gets celebrated in this country. And if that someone has to be me, then so be it. Blake stared at her for a long moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was quieter, but somehow more intense. You know what's truly mediocre, Joy? Hiding behind the excuse of having tough conversations when really you're just being cruel. You could have asked me thoughtful questions about the evolution of country music, about how the genre has changed, or about the challenges of staying relevant in a changing industry. Those would have been real conversations. But instead, you chose to attack, demean, and dismiss. And you call that courage? Blake's voice was steady, but edged with frustration. Anna stepped closer now, her voice measured and diplomatic. Blake, I think what's happening here is that we're talking past each other. Joy has strong opinions about art and culture, and she expresses them bluntly. That's part of what makes this show work. But I also hear what you're saying about respect, and I think that's valid too. Maybe there's a way to acknowledge both perspectives. Both perspectives, Blake repeated, nodding slowly. Okay, let me ask you all something, and I want an honest answer. If I had come on this show and said that talk shows are mindless entertainment for people who don't want to think critically about the world, that the hosts are just performers reading off cards and pretending to have original thoughts, that the whole format is tired and repetitive, how would that have gone over? Would you be talking about both perspectives then? Or would you have shut me down immediately? The hosts exchanged glances, and the silence that followed was answer enough. Blake nodded, a sad smile crossing his face. That's what I thought, Blake said. See, the respect only goes one way here. Joy can say whatever she wants about country music, about the people who make it and love it, and it's called having tough conversations. But if someone pushes back, if someone defends themselves and their work, suddenly we need to find common ground and acknowledge both perspectives. The hypocrisy is astounding. Whoopi sighed heavily, her exhaustion evident. Blake,